Hi everyone, this is Sky. I'm coming to you today with kind of an impromptu audio recording about Saturn and Capricorn. I'd planned on doing an actual video, but I had some technical difficulties going on, and if I didn't do this now, it was probably going to be February before I would get it out again. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make things simple. I'm going to get out my phone and I'm just going to record some of my thoughts because I think with this type of energy coming in, it's really great to just be able to put something out as long as it is quality, which I do feel like this is. And I thought that this could be nice because I think with Saturn and Capricorn type of energy, as well as a lot of other energies going on right now, it's good to be able to multitask and maybe rather than really devoting all of your attention to this, you can have it in the background, maybe when you're driving to work or when you're doing some work on your house, and just kind of be able to listen to some of the energies coming forward, which is affecting everyone really strongly right now. And albeit impromptu and spontaneous, I have notes and a lot of things that I've written down and things which I've been reflecting on for like the last 6 months, knowing that we were going into this type of energy. So I'm going to elaborate on some of that which I have, as well as do some channeling as I usually do. And without further ado, I will go ahead and begin speaking about this incredible change in energy. So, Saturn went into Capricorn on December 19th, 2017, and it will be in Capricorn until December 16th of 2020. This is a very long-term transit, as you can see. And the next 3 years will determine, especially for people whose charts this plays a big role in, the next 15 and even 30 years of energetic momentum. So there's a lot to think about. It's a huge shift, and always when we're talking about some of these outer planet transits coming in, it's important to sort of think about the energy that they're leaving behind as well. So Saturn was in Sagittarius, which is Jupiter's sign, and the last 2 years, I think through 2016 and 2017, part of 2015 as well, have really been just a phenomenal experience for a lot of people. Not necessarily in a positive or negative way, but lots of things have changed. Lots of ways that we work with energy, especially, has changed or have changed, and we're sort of left picking up the pieces. I really think that the sort of bursting, explosive energy that sort of is almost like the Big Bang type of energy that we can sort of see with Saturn in Sagittarius has sort of taken us into this restructuring time with Saturn in Capricorn. I would like to note as well that I personally don't think that Saturn in Sagittarius is a very healthy type of energy. Because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the antithesis of Saturn. They're sort of adversarial type of energies. So when Saturn goes into Sagittarius, it automatically doesn't really like the type of energy that it's dealing with. Although I will say a lot of very important things have happened on the world stage with Saturn and Sagittarius, as well as at the more microcosmic level within everyone. I think that everybody sort of functions differently now at just a root energetic level. And I think that everyone wants to change their lives. I think that everyone has realized like what isn't working, sort of the drudgery with Saturn and Sagittarius is no longer what we want. People have realized, okay, my 9 to 5 job is not actually giving me something of value, something of philosophical value. Therefore, I'm going to structure my way into something which gives me philosophical value. For me, that was Saturn and Sagittarius. For a lot of people, that was Saturn and Sagittarius. And now Saturn in Capricorn comes through to like test that. And it's like, okay, you've sort of started to create a world that is more in line with your desires and your values as a person, your higher minded ideals. Now, can you actually make that real? Can you actually make that more than a pipe dream? Because we start to realize as we have this shift here in December, especially, what that means, what it means to actually structure your life around what your desires as a person are. There's sort of a honeymoon phase with that, I've realized, and we can start to see the similarities between like our old 9 to 5s or our old more drudgery experience of life start to come into these new desires, which is not a bad thing. There's sort of like a need to marry the project or a need to commit with coming in with Saturn and Capricorn here. And I will say a strong need to outline and to plan, but not in a way that's unrealistic and not in a way that makes you invest all of your energy in the planning process versus what you actually do. Moving into Saturn and Capricorn here and now, it will be very, very paramount to understand what we're actually capable of and to not dream up realities which can never come true. That doesn't mean that you can't plan big. That doesn't mean that you can't have very grandiose ideals of what you can do. That's, again, very much already done with Saturn and Sagittarius, so that's kind of expected in a way. In fact, much higher places can be reached with Saturn and Capricorn than Saturn and Sagittarius, although the factor of luck or the factor of sudden growth without trying very hard becomes less utilizable or becomes less real or less of something that you can work with. And you really have to come into a place where your product or your content or your energetic investments as a person have real, tangible, solid expectations or results. So as you can probably tell, I'm kind of coming at this from a stream of consciousness, although I do have an outline here in front of me. I'm going to speak about how Saturn in Capricorn will affect your career and finance, how it will affect your relationships, how it will affect your health, and overall just other intuitive feelings that I have. But I'm going to, before I get into those specific sectors and those specific parts of life, continue to talk just a little bit about the nature of this transit so that you can apply that to your own life, because that's important for me. I don't like to get too specific with this type of thing, with astrology or tarot or whatever you come to my channel for, because I don't believe in self-fulfilling prophecies, and it's important for me to be abstract. It's important for me to speak about these things in more of a macrocosmic collective way so that you can then apply it to your own life, and you have to be able to do that. You have to not necessarily come here expecting me to tell you like what amount of money you're going to make or what job you're going to have or what works for you. That's personal to you, and I can't really know that, and I don't try to. It's an energetically unnecessary thing for me to try to do right now, but definitely try to apply what I'm saying to your life and see what maybe small changes you can make to function much more healthily at an energetic level. So to sort of continue the stream of consciousness and understand about like Saturn and Capricorn itself, we definitely have to take into nature first the nature of Saturn itself. This is the planet that rules tangible, real structures and limitations and rules of the world. This is the planet that rules architecture and buildings and matter that comes together to create a structure which helps us. And a lot of people in astrology consider Saturn this very negative influence or this very difficult experience. And for most people, you can track the most traumatic periods of their life by all of the outer planets to an extent, but specifically Saturn, and I would also say Pluto. Those two definitely come up most strongly for me about trauma in life. But there's always, almost always, when you see a Saturn conjunct Sun or a Saturn conjunct any or even opposite or square the inner planets, there tends to be some kind of recounting or hindsight of difficulty during these periods of life. So when this planet changes signs for everyone, it's going to create like a change in background. Like if you picture a stage or like a play or something, this is going to change the background. And then if it's in your chart specifically, the actual actors or the actual events happening on the stage will also start to be affected. But for everyone collectively, the background has changed now that Saturn has changed signs. And knowing the nature of Saturn, things will start to change as it relates to rules and structures of society, how it relates to architecture, how it relates to spiritual, political, or financial, or physical architecture in life. So that creates a lot, and we start to see, especially as like financial, societal, or political structures start to change, the effect that that has on the microcosmic experience in life. Individual things start to change, and that's really the explosive point of Saturn experiences of life, is because how that reflection happens when you have these changes in financial structures or changes in big collective experiences, the I want to say reflection or symbiosis that occurs at the individual level in reaction to this type of thing is sort of the magic or the also fatality of this type of thing as well. And at first it can kind of come out as a rejection. We can like reject financial structures, or we can reject reality. A lot of people maybe who this affects really strongly can have a very strong change in financial income, or a very strong change in the way that they make their money, the way that they work their physical world, change in residence, building a new house, even destruction of your current home. Not for everyone, that's going to depend on your chart individually. But something like, look around you in your room right now. What can you touch? What is real? Because again, Saturn is not ethereal concepts of life. We can have reactions in ourselves that deal with that, but Saturn is never going to be the fuzzy feelings or the warm easiness or even the dreary, like very strongly emotionally damaged type of energy either. Saturn is merely something real that you can touch in your life, architectures, physical things, money, jobs, um, people, even it can be less often. And the way that we react to that plays out through other parts in our life. So if Saturn's like conjunct your Neptune or something, or if Saturn is hitting your Venus or something, it's going to play out in some of these more emotional ways, or on your moon. But when it's just Saturn in and of itself, and speaking collectively for this video, it's going to be a change in physical circumstance. And to sort of start to look at my notes here as well, it will definitely play out potentially in governmental or financial institutions. We will definitely see many changes in tax, many changes in finances in general, governmental finances, global markets. That type of thing will definitely change. And at a more individual level, there needs to be caution with any kind of spontaneity relating to stocks or non-tangible goods, relating to markets, relating to anything that deals with investments or large sums of like digital money, currencies. There has to be caution, or any kind of investment into something which is not real or something which suddenly explodes, because Saturn really inhibits sudden things. Like Saturn is all about the long term. It's about small growth, which is consistent, predictable, and with time becomes very powerful. And then again, Saturn in Sagittarius was more about maybe something very small, which suddenly exploded into something huge, and then can very easily fall back down and becomes fragile with power. And that's what Saturn in Capricorn, this is the good thing about this transit, is it prevents this. Because delicate power is not a wonderful thing. And Saturn wants to make sure that power is earned, and that strong businesses or structures in the economy, or even relationship structures, it can be depending on you, it wants to make sure that this was earned and that this is right, and that there's not a risk of falling hard. And things can fall very hard during this time, because everything that has been built during, the last 30 years even, but specifically over Saturn and Sagittarius the last 2 or 3 years, everything which has been built in an unstructured way on a foundation which is weak will probably fall hard. And you can even see it peak even more over the next year even, and then because there will be like this opportunity for everyone. It's not this scary thing which causes devastations to everyone regardless of how much you've been trying. There will be an opportunity for about the first year of Saturn in Capricorn, if you've sort of risen quickly and you have had that luck aspect of being strong or being powerful. There will be an opportunity to then structure it and make it strong. But if you don't really take in this energy and use it to do so, like if you try to keep capitalizing on really, like say you've had like a 200% growth in your company, and you think, okay, I've had this 200% growth, I think I'm going to have a 300% growth now, rather than getting into that 200% and thinking, okay, how can I structure each percentage in its own special way? That would be the best thing to do. That way it becomes like strong, and then you've just always had that. Anyway, I'm getting a bit specific here. It will be important, I think, to invest in like real things. So again, this isn't all about money, but again, Saturn is like the financial planet, in my opinion. So that's how it is coming. And then again, Capricorn is the 10th house, which deals with finances and deals with prestige. So it's finances and money are going to become very strong and are going to become like more important aspects of society, whether we like that or not. Or the things that it may not even be money or finance, but the things that we consider valuable and real in our societies will become more strong. And probably there will be like new philosophies about like transactions, or new philosophies about the way that we make changes in this way. So real estates, things that are real, and I just think like real estate or anything that deals with like a real market or tangible goods has very much potential here. Again, not so good for things which are fake. And something that I'm feeling to sort of get out of finances is there might be a general coldness. There might be a general, like, glacial almost nature to life, whether it be in relationships or what have you. Because we also have Jupiter in Scorpio, which is a very frozen type of energy. And a possibility for relationships or just the way that you're introducing yourself to people can definitely start to feel more cold, or people may start to feel less inviting or warm. It's not going to be the best time to be relying on other people to give you some kind of feeling. Just because there can just be like cold-hearted people, I definitely sense with this transit. And ultimately overcoming that, ultimately being able to be warm throughout that, and being able to still find your love as a person, and the warmth within your own heart through that is the goal. But it's not bad, because again, we have to remember that Saturn is at home in Capricorn. This is its favorite sign, so it's like a healthy Saturn energy. So definitely I think people may be cold, but it's like a sign, and it's like a blessing. Even, I want to say, it feels like the cold-heartedness of other people can be your biggest blessing, because you're not going to waste time. And I've just suddenly had a light bulb moment, because sometimes when people give you a false warmness, or when people like fool themselves into thinking that they like you by maybe being warm, or telling you that they want to start a relationship, or it's sort of like that the fiery energy again, which makes people like fall in love. Like, falling in love will be harder, I think, under this energy, especially once we get out of Jupiter and Scorpio, I want to say, because Jupiter and Scorpio can kind of make this like a soap opera type of love scene. But it can also create a cold heartedness as well. That kind of goes either way. So honestly, I think that falling in love will be harder and not happen as often. And that might be kind of discouraging for some. But in reality, it's like it's your biggest blessing, because falling in love and it not being real is a huge waste of time. And again, Saturn is the planet of time. It is the planet of time management. And it's sort of coming in its best sign, in its sort of most healthy, energetic way to say, falling in love is good, but it's got to be real, and it's got to be real love. It can't be this fake, distraction oriented object which makes us derail in some way. It has to be real. So any kind of relationship with anyone else must have some kind of real, tangible value to it. Not That's not necessarily meaning that you need to marry someone rich, or that you can't be dating people who are like below your fiscal place in society. That's kind of a danger of this transit. In fact, like, people can become very money centric and become like gold diggers, or become selfish, or too obsessed with money. Can definitely happen during this time as well. But it's saying that before you take a leap of faith, or before you start giving your time to somebody, you have to make sure that there is a real connection, and that there's something which births new possibility and opportunity from this relationship. It can't be something that you wake up 2 years later and have some sort of crisis with, and end up having nothing to show for. So the biggest blessing, although it may feel like you're just not attracting anybody, although it may feel like you're not clicking with anybody, or nobody wants to be with you, you have to understand that this is a blessing, so that you can actually do something with your life. Please understand this. Another point that I'm feeling is sort of a redefinition of matriarchal and patriarchal values, and also an integration of this, because Saturn in Capricorn is kind of both the matriarchy and the patriarchy. Saturn as a planet is very patriarchal. If you look at the history of Saturn itself, it is very much the fatherly authority figure, and also the powerful father figure. But Capricorn, and a lot of people think that because Saturn rules Capricorn, that Capricorn as well is patriarchal, but Capricorn is a feminine earth sign. So it's actually matriarchal, because it's given that powerful cardinal energy, right, from Saturn and being a cardinal sign, but it's feminine. So you actually have Saturn the patriarch in the sign of the matriarch. So there's going to be this strong integration of these values, which will just be an interesting thing to see playing out. It will be important to not be so and I don't really want to get into this topic because it's not really evocative of this transit, but powerful men or powerful women, you could definitely see people being powerful just because they're men, or just because they're women, because they fit some kind of um, outline, or they fit some kind of want for a political or societal um, expression, which is a negative, I think, of this transit. You can see because somebody can be the matriarchy or somebody can be the patriarchy, they get the job even if they're not qualified. Although it won't last long. It's one of those sort of bursting things, that sort of like 200% increase that I'm talking about. That type of thing will fall through because Saturn keeps things sturdy and structured. So that's sort of, again, just kind of stream of consciousness. It will be important for us to make sure people are qualified and that we're not hiring people just because they fit like an expression, if that makes sense. Time and task management come forward. Self-discipline will be really, really important during this transit. Having a routine. This is also, to me, the energy of debt collection and the payment of debts. It's not debt itself. For me, that's more of an eighth house, second house, like Scorpio Taurus type of ideal. But this is like the debt collector or the tax collector. This could be the person coming and like demanding that you give them something, or this could be like the seizure of assets because you couldn't give something, in many different ways. If there's one thing to definitely take from this type of energy, it is to, how do I want to say, pay your debts. If you can like not get into debt, that would be wonderful, but it has to be very responsible debt. You know, if you're like buying a home or something, or you're like doing a business venture, all of your debts have to be very taken into account for, and you can't be like spendthrift. You can't be like Jupiterian, like, wow, my budget is this, but I really like this, and it's like twice my budget, but I think the company's going to have a 200% increase, and it did last year, so it probably will again, so having that in mind, I'm going to take this big risk. Not a good time for any kind of financial risk, for sure. Because it also sort of makes me think of the idea of like compensation, and I definitely think that ego and ambition comes in here as well. So make sure you know what you want and make sure you're not fooling yourself, because there are sort of two types of ambition that I think really kind of emerge with this type of energy, especially with Jupiter there in Scorpio as well, where you can have like a true ambition where you really enjoy what you want to create and you think that it offers something amazing to the world, and you can also structure your energy very strongly, which is a good way to function. And then there's sort of an ego energy that's sort of like, okay, I've been pushed down by many people, and just to be on top, I think that I want this power. And what that can kind of lead to is sort of like this compensatory energy, I want to say, where all of those values and desires that you have, which may be coming out through power or coming out or manifesting in that way, start to compensate because it's not what you really want. For example, you could see that you start this huge project because you want to become very rich and you want to become powerful, and you can get that with Saturn and Capricorn. It's basically like whatever you structure, you can receive. But you could see this sort of misaimed, strong projection of energy have a like effect on like your romantic life or your family life. It's like it could compensate elsewhere because you've not actually truly calibrated what it is that you want. That said, regardless of what you're doing, whether or not you're even pursuing a career right now, not everybody will be. Whether or not you're having these changes in relationship values, it will be a time to gain endurance. So any kind of like a cardio that's not like overly explosive or just sort of builds up is really good. It's important to gain core strength right now. Yoga would be wonderful. Something which diverts energy out of your body, but at the same time like cleanses and purifies the things which are building up. Because I think like on the health scheme, anything that has to deal with solid things coming together. So there is a potential for like tumors or gallstones or plaque buildup, or any kind of crystallization or matter which comes together in the body if you're too stagnant or if you're too upset or mad. Again, this isn't a great transit, and again, this is 3 years, so of course everyone's going to be emotional. We're emotional beings, but it's not a good transit to try to yield emotional power, especially after Jupiter gets out of Scorpio, because that kind of creates it and that kind of pushes it in. But anything which is like, I feel like I'm going to explode, but I'm going to hold it in and try to explode at the right time, watch out for that. It can accomplish really amazing things, but it wouldn't be so good for your health. Let's see, what else do I have written down here? You definitely have to seek practicality. That's a wonderful thing to look. Anything that sort of does give you a sense of service and productivity. Productivity is going to be like the key word. How can you be productive in whatever you do? You know, whether you're running a business, whether you're, still working the 9 to 5 where you feel like you're not very high on the hierarchy. How can you maybe do the 9 to 5 and like come home and from like 8 to 10 you're building this new business and being like really productive? Saturn is very encouraging and should actually give everyone a new kind of burst of energy. Because with Saturn and Sag, there was definitely energy. If anything, there was too much of it, where you're like, okay, I can do it all, and maybe you would work like a 24-hour shift and then come home and sleep for like 19 hours and then go back and work for 8 hours. There's a lot of that type of thing with Saturn and Sag. But Saturn and Capricorn really gives you the wherewithal to do long, consumptive things, but not actually spend that much energy doing it. That's another thing relating to money and energy. How can you have more and spend less? Saturn's very frugal, very and maximizes the value of energy or the dollar or whatever, because Saturn and Sag definitely put people into like expensive energetic situations which don't give that much. So it's very easy to upsize your house and spend less, or it's very easy to put less time into your business and produce that much more. Definitely wrap your head around, especially right in the beginning of this transit, how can I do that? How can I have more time? How can I have more money? How can I have more energy? And getting into relationships a little bit more. Again, it's not the most relationship oriented transit, so it's hard to really talk about that much. Of course, again, if you're having like a Saturn Venus or a Saturn Mars, or even a Saturn Moon or Sun connection, then it will definitely become more relationship. But this energy in and of itself doesn't really play out there that strongly, except in the case that it can definitely bring marriage, and it can, but it's not usually marriage out of love. It's usually a like power marriage or a combination of assets or something that has to do with resources. So definitely pay attention to like, does the person want to be with you because of what you have? Do you want to be with the person because of what they have? And also, like, I want to say deals or negotiations with companies. Like, make sure that there's like real tangible value to deals and negotiations, etc. But anyway, more about relationships. Um, Unions can become very powerful, but the relationship also has to have sustenance or substance, not sustenance. The relationship has to have substance and it has to be real. I already kind of said that. Because what can happen, you can also become very stigmatized during this transit, or you can also be accused of something. Although you can also be like very played up and very valued. The thing is, like, things stick with this type of energy. It's not really the type of thing where if you do something wrong or if you do something wonderful, it just fades away really quickly. It's a very permanent type of energy which gets set. So make sure your values are high, because if people find out that you've been operating in a really low way, it might be a really hard reputation to shake. But also, if people find out that you're operating in a very integrity based way, that reputation could last for like the next 30 years. And honestly, I would say that it's a wonderful time to be single. If for those of you who've been married, it's different, but it's really not the most conducive energy to be looking or to be trying to form relationships, just because the energy does not focus on emotions or non-tangible. The energy right now with this type of energy does not focus on ethereal qualities or soulmate connections. It focuses on real aspects of life, and there's a very, very strong individuality in this transit as well. And relationships can hinder that. Relationships can change who you are individually. Relationships can make your ideals and desires change, because people kind of, bleed off on each other. And Saturn in Capricorn wants us to form something solid within ourselves. So if you can relate with people and not be affected in the sense that they're not going to change you very easily, then it can work out better. But if you still haven't built or are still kind of feeling fragile in your sense of like wholeness at the self, I would say that either relationships will be prevented or they just won't work out too well. And overall, this transit kind of feels to me like gravity. There will be, like, everything is affected by gravity. And, I probably should have said at the beginning of the video, like, Capricorns obviously will be affected by this most strongly. And then I feel like, secondly, Cancers will be affected very strongly. And then Aries and Libra, and then all the earth signs. So Virgo, Taurus. So to wrap that up, the signs who will feel this most strongly, this type of energy, will be Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, Aries, Virgo, Taurus. So that's half the zodiac, yeah, but specifically Cancer and Capricorn, and then Aries and Libra, and then Taurus and Virgo. It sort of goes in that order of effectiveness. And be grateful. to be affected by this energy, because it's not easy. It's not an easy type of transit. Saturn never is, but it's the healthiest version of Saturn. And although you can feel like angry or mad that maybe like soft, energetic experiences of life that have to do with the relationships and easiness don't come through, it is the most optimum transit to build something strong within yourself, and you will be rewarded thoroughly for doing that. You will also be rewarded thoroughly for having integrity and morals, because Saturn does deal with morals and integrity, not in the same way that Jupiter does. Jupiter deals with like values and virtue as well, but Saturn deals with the actual repercussions of that and the real world ways that that plays out, that your virtues and your morals and integrity come to light. So not a time to blackmail, not a time to be operating through subterfuge or to be manipulating others, because that will have real world tangible results, and as well as operating highly. So anyway, everyone, this is kind of a long video. I really hope that you got something out of this. Again, it was kind of a stream of consciousness, and just recorded on my smartphone, and I was really happy to talk about it. Let me know if you like this, format, or if you would like prefer more video format, or if the audio is like not high enough quality. I would love to do a lot of other videos like this. Again, like, comment, subscribe. That would make my day. Share this video with anyone, any of those signs or all the signs. I would so appreciate it. And you can check the description box for any other useful links, like my social media, all of that. So anyway, I will be talking to you guys soon. January readings will be up on December 31st, I believe. So we've got a few days, and they're already on Patreon, all of that. Check all that out. Anyway, talk to you guys later. Bye.